in the meantime, let's bring into the conversation right now. We want to talk about, like I said, these developments there in the Israel-Hamas war. We're going to ask a lot of questions to IDF Major Doron Spielman. He's joining us now live from Israel with the latest. Major, thanks so much for being with us here. We do have a live picture right now, like I said, there in southern Israel, looking into Gaza, but also in southern Gaza. This is in Khan Yunis at and outside one of the major hospitals there. This is the largest city in southern Gaza. We've been reporting that IDF forces have expanded the operation into southern Gaza. And so should we kind of take from this expansion of the operation that IDF forces are well on their way to securing and taking the entire Gaza Strip? Is that on the horizon?
Well, thank you for having me, Andrew. As we've said from the very beginning, when the attack happened on October 7th, it was clear to us that Hamas has to be completely destroyed and their military completely degraded so that such an attack can never happen, and that we bring our hostages home. Everything that we're doing is going according to those guidelines. Wherever Hamas is in the Gaza Strip, that's where we're going. We're not looking to take over, just the sandy hill where Hamas is nowhere over it. Where we are going is where Hamas is located. And since Hamas's game plan has been from the beginning to attack Israel and then retreat into civilian areas, we find ourselves engaging with them, unfortunately, in civilian areas. Now, the main place we're focusing right now is the second largest city in the Gaza Strip. It's called Khan Yunis, and it really is kind of the Mosul of Hamas terrorism. It's their terror. A lot of their headquarters are there. A lot of their higher level military heads and political heads have been hiding there within the civilian population. You have, anti-tank rockets, anti-aircraft rockets, hundreds of miles of tunnels that have been established there. And they've webbed everything in as much as they could within the civilian population. So that is where we are now operating and trying our best to close in on Hamas in that area.
Of course, Major, at the very, precipice of the ground operation there in Gaza, it started in northern Gaza. You told hundreds of thousands of Gazan civilians to evacuate to the south, but now the center of the fighting is in the south. What about those civilians? Where are they going now? You told them earlier, the you being the IDF, at the very outset of the ground invasion, to go there to escape harm's way.
Look, I think there's probably no other army in the history of modern warfare, if in the history of the world, that has done more for a civilian population that is not its own than the IDF. We see our goal, one of our main goals, in addition to destroying Hamas and bringing home our hostages, right up there at the top is trying to protect the people of Gaza, which Hamas, ironically, who are supposed to be the protectors of those people, push in the line of fire. We are trying to move them out of the line of fire. We established a map that has broken down Gaza into thousands of squares so that we can try to cause the least bit of bother to the people of Gaza, to say to them, instead of moving 2 miles away, you're in this building block, we've identified legitimate Hamas targets operating exactly in your area. Please move 2 miles to the east and move quickly. 2 buildings to the east and move quickly so that we can try to move them out of harm's way. Look, this is not a situation that is a nice situation to be in for the citizens of Gaza. It's certainly a situation that's been horrible for the people of Israel. But within the confines and the context of war, we are doing everything we can to keep that population safe.
Yeah, and I don't know if you would agree with this. Maybe you would, that it seems like the conventional wisdom is forming, the conversation are being had right now about what to do with Gaza after the war is over. Are some of those conversations premature at this point, or are they in fact happening because the IDF is close to somewhat, declaring victory over Hamas, over all of Gaza? Because Netanyahu said today that he thinks the IDF should be in charge of the disarmament of Gaza after the war is over. What are your thoughts on that?
Look, from a military perspective, our goal right now is clearly to degrade Hamas. Now, we don't want to put the cart before the horse. This is not going to happen overnight, especially considering I think most militaries would have bombed Hamas from the air and not, even engaged them on the ground. But because of our care for civilian life of the Gazan people, we're on the ground, and it's going to take time. I mean, we're looking at them through tunnels. We're finding tunnel shafts all over Gaza and destroying them. We're trying to move a civilian population, and we know that we're losing time because part of those Hamas terrorists are, of course, utilizing civilian areas in order to try to escape the line of fire so they can reestablish and shoot against Israel. The game plan is going to take time. So first of all, our goal is to destroy Hamas as quickly and as efficiently as possible with the least amount of harm. The end game is something that the political establishment and the international arena is obviously thinking about.
Sure.
It's an important consideration. I can tell you from the Israeli perspective, whatever happens is our people have to be able to go to sleep at night peacefully without worrying that there are murderers out there. And I think that is being addressed right now in a lot of these conversations of what will be the ultimate security force that can protect the Israeli people.
Major Spielman, we're almost 1 week removed since the end of the ceasefire that was in place because Hamas violated it last week, and almost, 100 hostages had been released. There's about 140 plus hostages that remain in Hamas captivity. A week on, can you offer anything about what maybe Israeli intelligence or military officials have gleaned from the hostages who have been released, about how Hamas treated them, about what their captivity was like? We got some reports today in the Times of Israel that hostages were given drugs by Hamas when they were released to make them appear more ebullient, more happy in front of the TV cameras when they were exchanged into Israeli custody. What do you make of that?
The hostage situation that is unfolding as these hostages speak more and more speaks of a nightmarish tale. Again, we have to imagine these people were literally ripped out of their beds in their pajamas, saw their loved ones killed. Children were hiding under the beds, and they were killed under the beds, while older siblings were taken to Gaza on the back of motorcycles. Their legs of the children were pressed against the exhaust pipe of the motorcycles in order to brand them, so that if they tried to get away in Gaza, they could easily be identified. They were taken into dark tunnels and fed maybe one meal a day, severely dehydrated, did not see the sun for 50 days, and the ones that are in Gaza right now haven't seen the sun for 61 days. Medical treatment was denied to them. They did not get medicines. There was no visits by the Red Cross. The stories that are coming out are harrowing and horrific and are shocking and, of course, tear us apart because we still have, as you mentioned, close to 140 hostages in Gaza. There is no question that Hamas are committing war crimes, so many war crimes, it could fill volumes of a book. They had massacred innocent civilians. They are now hiding behind their own civilians and putting them in the line of fire, and they are denying the most basic humanitarian medical treatment to our people that are hostages. This will go down in history, I think, as one of the greatest war crimes. And people really have to ask themselves, what side of history do they want to be on? It seems like there's a hope where the world is waking up now, and they are starting to lay the responsibility at the feet of Hamas. But Hamas, if we care about Israel and we care about the people of Gaza, we cannot allow ourselves to be distracted by the smoke and mirrors. The responsibility here is Hamas. They have to deal with our hostages, and they have to move away from their own civilians.
Okay, and just lastly, Major, when you're talking about smoke and mirrors, I want to get to the conversation that is being had in response to some comments that have been made, here domestically in the United States by political leaders and others in the West, somewhat equivocating when it comes to talking about the sex crimes that Hamas perpetrated on Israeli women on October 7th. And some have tried to either, minimize or diminish that. The IDF put this out today, and I want to get you to respond about why they felt they needed to put this out. They said, following statements made in the past day regarding the situation of the hostages in the Gaza Strip, discourse on this issue, meaning these sexual crimes, is irresponsible, inaccurate, and should be avoided. They go on to say, we're using intelligence to monitor the situation of the hostages around the clock and demand that all international organizations verify their situation, their security, and provide them with medical care, both men and women here, to which, and I want to get you to comment on this as well, because the Association of Rape Crisis Centers in Israel came out with this response today, pushing back against claims Israeli women have not, quote unquote, testified about Hamas sexual assault and Hamas rapes. They said this is Ori Soliciano. He's head of the Association of Rape Crisis Centers in Israel. He said, most of the people I assume that have passed this kind of terror are dead because they were shot, meaning that's possibly why there have been a lack of testimonials alluding to or hinting at or confirming that these sexual abuse claims and assaults did, in fact, happen. Why is this being talked about? Why do you think this is being minimized right now?
I think what we're looking at is an issue that has a lot of different parts to it. There has been silence throughout the world, and there's been a great protest from Israel. Why is the world not acknowledging what has happened to the civilian population in Gaza? Could we imagine if this happened, God forbid, in the United States or in Canada, where there are hostages that are not getting medical treatment? There are men and women, including young girls, young boys, children, who's, just to think of Hamas having kind of them in their custody is a frightening scenario, and the entire world is not up in arms. So I feel like there is a call from Israel that the world should be up in arms about Hamas's violation of human rights. At the same time, we are respecting the privacy of individuals that live in Israel, of their families who are worried about them, of those individuals themselves, and spreading rumors is irresponsible both to those families and to those people who've been taken. So we are trying to be sensitive to the victims while pressing the world to clearly call on these heinous crimes a war crime and bring Hamas to justice. And that, I feel, is the context in which this is taking place.
All right, Major Spielman, we do appreciate your time. We'll definitely be speaking again as this war goes on. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Andrew.